Hello, beautiful people. Today is 4th of June. My name is Sahil, and welcome to Newspaper Analysis. Friends, he is Benjamin Franklin, the great inventor and the founding father of US. He says, an investment is knowledge, always pays the best interest. Now, this particular statement solves the controversy as whether the resources should be allocated to the social infrastructure or to the economic infrastructure. Guys, if social investments are to be carried, then in the long term, anyhow, it will bring the economic growth. Guys, this particular statement you can use into the social justice questions in GS paper number 2. Now, guys, coming to the yesterday's main question, the question was if Asian century is a reality, regional cooperation is the means and multilateralism is the end in the changing international dynamics. Comment. Now, guys, into these type of questions, first of all, you need to have a preconceived notion. Yes, the 21st century is the Asian century. Now, guys, you can start that 19th century belonged to Europe, 20th century belonged to North America, and indispensably the 21st century is belonging to the Asia. And the geostrategic dimensions have already been tilted into the favor of the Pacific from the Atlantic. Why? Because Asia has all the largest consumer base, the largest manufacturing base, and one of the emerging technology base. After justifying 21st century as Asian century, we will say that the steering wheel is to be held by India, and India is doing well by holding an approach towards regionalism. In this particular direction, look west and act east are the perfect examples. On the one hand, we are getting engaged with the West Asia for the strategic interest, whereas on the other hand, India is actively elevating the bilateral as well as strategic agreements with countries such as Japan, South Korea, and various other Asian tigers. Now, by using this regionalism, we will be entering onto the world multilateral stage. Why? Because we can see that the institutions such as WHO had failed to respond. Moreover, even the World Trade Organizations have not been able to put forward the concerns of the developing nations, and therefore, new age of multilateralism will be unveiled by India as a spearheader. But in conclusion, we need to say that cooperation in place of conflict is the key. And in order to truly leverage Asian century, the regional conflicts and disputes are needed to be resolved bilaterally and amicably. So guys, in this particular way, you will be writing the answer. And now let's start with the newspaper analysis. Now guys, let's have a brief overview of the entire paper first of all. So Nisarg had made the landfall but it has dissipated. So we will see why. Then government is boosting the infrastructure. We will see under which scheme and why. Then the new set of confrontation between US and China have begun. We will see what is actually happening here. Then guys, here the ideas of smart policing has been mentioned. So we will see how we can use it into the exam. After that, moving forward, the Operation Sugam has been mentioned. So we will see it under the ease of living initiatives by the state for the migrants. After that, moving forward, the queer inclusion policy has been mentioned. So under the social issues, we will see that why it should be there in the government also. After that, coming to the editorial section, the first editorial is about the G11. So what should be the India's strategy in this regard? After that, what is China doing in LAC and how India should respond? Then, why the parliamentary proceedings should go in action and what the world countries are doing in this regard. Here, the data with respect to the infection has been written. We will not be discussing. Then, guys, this particular article is much politicized, not important for exam. Here, the power tariff policy has been mentioned, so we will be discussing this thing. Then moving forward, we reach to the Gilgit-Baltistan defacement of architectural artifacts. We will discuss this thing under the light of art and culture. Then guys, in order to attract the investment, na new empowered group of secretaries have been established. We will see this thing. After that, an MOU on cooperation has been signed between India and Bhutan. Then the cabinet has given a massive nod for the agricultural market reforms. So three things will be seeing here in this regard. After that, moving forward, the Brown Rock Chat has been mentioned, so we will see its IUCN status and where it is found. Then, guys, British Prime Minister as well as Nepal had given the contradictory statements onto the Hong Kong, so we will see how the world countries are divided. Then, onto the business page, much news is not there, so these are the articles that we will be seeing today. So, now, guys, let's have the detailed discussion. Now, starting with the first news, government has decided to boost the infrastructure along the line of actual control. Now, friends, into the last few days, we have traced the entire issue of India and China border dispute along the line of actual control. And we had seen that both the sides have made heavy deployments along the LAC. Now, government, in order to ramp up the influence and vigilance into the region, has decided to give a focus onto the infrastructure projects. Now, these projects will serve two purposes. First of all, it will give the sense of security to the people who are living into the border areas, and secondly, developmental fruits can also be given to these people so that pro India perceptions can improve. Moreover, these infrastructure projects will also give an opportunity to integrate the people living in borders with the people of mainland India. Now, talking about the scheme under which this infrastructure development will be carried. The name of the scheme is Border Area Development Program, which was started during the 7th 5 year plan. Now, guys, first of all, talking about the nature of the scheme, it is a centrally sponsored scheme. Now, there are two type of schemes: central sector scheme and centrally sponsored scheme. Central sponsored scheme means that some part will be given by the center and the some part will be given by the state, whereas into the central sector scheme the entire funding is given by the center, whereas the state's responsibility is only the implementation. However, moving forward, now this particular scheme is implemented by the Department of Border Management, which is under Ministry of Home Affairs. Please keep in mind, it is not under the Ministry of Defense. Now, friends, whatever money was being given under the program, it has now been decided that the 10% of entire funds will be spent into the Ladakh, Arunachal, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Sikkim, because these areas shares a crucial border with China. Now, keep in mind that when we are talking about the border area development program, not only the strategic infrastructure such as roads and bridges are to be made, rather infrastructure such as schools, hostels, primary medical care centers, etc., can also be made. Now, the projects are chosen by the border guarding forces whosoever is deployed into that region. So that's all, and now we'll move to the next. Now, friends, yesterday we had seen the trajectory of cyclone Nisarg, which started into the Arabian Sea as a depression and was elevated to the severe cyclone category by the Indian Meteorological Department. In this regard, we had already discussed the conditions for cyclone, why cyclones are more prominent into the Bay of Bengal, and all these such kind of things. Now, as finally the cyclone has made a landfall, it has not caused much devastation in both Gujarat as well as Maharashtra, though there was little bit destruction, but the scale has rampantly came down and it finally returned in again into the category of deep depression. Now, guys, we'll not go into the fatalities and all these kind of things, but a question comes that why the cyclone dissipates when it reaches the land. Now, guys, in this particular regard, there are two prominent reasons. Number one is the supply of moisture and heat. Guys, these are the fuels for a cyclone by which it produces so much energy. Now, guys, onto the ocean, when the evaporation of water happens into this process, the vapors carry the latent heat along with them, and by this latent heat, much dramatic weather phenomena are carried. Now, when they are into the ocean, they get the constant supply of this vapor as well as heat. But once they reach over the land, this supply is cut off and they will not be able to go that much far. And the second reason in this particular regard is the friction that is caused onto the land. There are the trees, the buildings, mountains, all these kind of things, and it reduces the intensity of cyclone, whereas they are not available onto the sea. Therefore, it is more violent onto the sea. Now the same thing happened with the cyclone Amphan. It reduced in intensity when reached the West Bengal and Odisha, and the same thing happens with the Nisarg also. So friends, please focus onto these concepts for your exam. And now we'll move to the next. Now here we will take a brief update on US and China. Now guys, into the new series of confrontation, a flight ban is going to happen between US and China. Now guys, as the recent crisis was unfolding, Chinese carriers were taking the flights into the USA, but into the meanwhile the USA's aircraft carriers were not allowed. And now the same thing is continuing, and China is not giving the permission to the carriers of the USA. Now, in this background, USA had said that if this thing will continue, then USA will also stop the flight of the Chinese carriers into the US. So, time for 16th of June has been given in this regard. Now, friends, this particular episode adds one more issue into the irritants between the US and China. So, all these are the major problems. First of all, the trade war is going on because the USA thinks that China's economic dominance is increasing so rapidly. After that, 5G technology war is going on because the USA thinks that China will be first to unroll the 5G technology onto the commercial scale and will leave the USA behind. And in this particular light, the USA is also banning the Huawei to procure the American components. Third, the war is of ideology because America is a classic case of capitalism, whereas China is communism, and traditionally both are against of each other. Then comes the recent crisis of pandemic, where the USA thinks that China has made a deliberate attempt to cripple the world economy, and in meanwhile it wants to assert itself. Then comes the South China Sea, where the China has claimed so much of territory, and USA thinks that it will hamper the free seas, which is very much crucial for the American superiority as blue ocean navy. And finally, it is zero sum game. The USA thinks that there can only be one superpower, and if China will rise, then it will degrade the autonomy and the power of the USA into the times to come. USA will cease to be the sole hegemon of the world. So that's all, and now we'll move to next. Now, friends, here's a news which we can use for our answer writing in GS paper number 2. Now, guys, Delhi police had started an initiative by the help of using technology. Now, guys, as the fear of infection is increasing and as more frontline police workers are getting infected, it has been decided that whenever into a police station, if somebody will demand to meet the official like the SHO or ACP, then that officer will not meet in person, rather into a separate room there will be a attached TV or the smartphone, and on that via the Zoom conferencing the meeting will be conducted. Now, this is actually a very intelligent way given the wake of a present crisis, and we need to conserve the ground fighting force. Now, guys, this particular thing can also be a way towards the smart policing. Now, the idea of smart policing was given by the Prime Minister in 2014, and by smart police, we mean the police that is strict but sensitive, modern and mobile, alert and accountable, reliable and responsive, and techno savvy and trained. So here the police is actually becoming the techno savvy. So into your answers you can use it as an example. Now we'll move to next. Now, friends, we will briefly see the Operation Sugam, which could be used an example of for the best practices adopted by the different states. Now, guys, it is also an example of optimum convergence of resources. Now, under the Operation Sugam, the district administration as well as local organizations they came together in order to alleviate the plight of the migrant workers. They were provided the bus services to reach back their home, then they were provided the cooked food, dry food, the drinking water, and all the basic necessities were fulfilled. So guys, here it is an example as how the different agencies are coming together in order to provide the ease of convenience to the vulnerable sections. Now, guys, there is a very sensitive issue in our society. There is a significant section of society which is called as LGBT community, and they are also often called by the word queer, which means an umbrella term for the different sections into this entire community. Now, guys, they also have a fundamental right under Article number 21, which gives them the dignified life, and the dignified life will not be complete until they get the dignified right to work. But often they are discriminated at the workplaces and are not given employment. And in this particular regard, queer inclusion policies can be very much helpful. Now, guys, these policies will specifically provide the right of the LGBT community in terms of employment, will give them various advantages as well as entitlements also. And in this regard, certain private corporates are coming forward. For example, Mahindra Logistics. Just as an example, you can use its name, it will give you some value addition. Now, guys, such kind of policies are very much appreciated. And even into the PSUs as well as government companies, the specific queer inclusion policies should be unrolled and they should be marketed enough so that the recipient of such benefits can avail those rights. Now, guys, in this particular regard, the rights such as leave for adoption, leave for parenthood, etc., should be given to the members of the community, because now the time has come when the right to equality should be moved from men and women binary and should embrace the other sections of society also. So that's all, and now we'll move to next. Now, friends, we are into the editorial, and the first editorial talks about the recent decision by the USA where they had decided that the G7 will be converted to the G11. Guys, yesterday already we had discussed the genesis of G7, its conversion into G8, and then again back to G7. Moreover, certain geostrategics into this particular regard also we have seen. Now, guys, this particular article again develops onto the line of G11 and its potential for India. Now, the world and the times are changing, and outrightly, the USA had said that the G7 or the group of seven most industrialized and powerful nations have ended, and now a reboot is needed. And in this reboot, along with the seven nations, four countries, that is Russia, South Korea, India and Australia are invited. Now, in this particular direction, India had appreciated the USA. Moreover, the South Korea and Australia has also shown their pleasure in this particular regard. However, when we talk about Russia, Russia has a condition that it will only join if the idea of equality will be preserved. Guys, back in 2014, Russia was already the member of G8, but it was removed due to its aggressive policies in Ukraine over the annexation of the Crimea. And this particular action, Russia thinks, is highly unilateral and defeats the idea of equality, because according to Russia, that was not an act of aggression. However, coming back to our topic, now, guys, if the membership of this entire bloc is seen, then one thing is very much clear, that deliberately China has been kept out of the grouping. And this is very much clear because the ongoing rivalry between USA and China, everybody is seeing. So, it is directly being said that G11 will see that what should be the future of China and how China can be made responsible for his actions to the world countries. Now, guys, in this particular regard, certain things are needed to be kept in mind. Number one, there was earlier also the G8 plus 5 group, which included India, China, Brazil, Mexico, and South Africa, but nothing substantial came out of G8 plus 5. So, therefore, we need to see that the new G11 might not be turning into such kind of a body. Secondly, we need to also see that though G11 has been announced, but to convert it into the G11, the approval from the G7 is also needed to be taken. So, will that thing be coming forward? Thirdly, we might be seeing a new era of Cold War between the USA and China, and this entire attempt of G11 could be an attempt of USA to make a gang. So, isn't India in falling a trap into that particular line? Then, fourthly, we also need to keep in mind that G7 itself has so many differences with respect to the climate change, the treatment of Iran, the security issues, and all that kind of thing. So it could be a possibility that there might be so much of logjam into the newly created G11 also that nothing substantial may come out of it. And the fifth thing is that we anyhow had to deal with the China who happens to be a neighbor, and we also have a dispute with it along with LAC. So whatever is being done into the G11 might not unnecessarily antagonize the China, because India being a direct neighbor, there could be the direct cost also. So guys, in all these things, these are certain challenges which India should consider. However, joining the group of 11 will substantially increase the stature of India, as India directly will get an entry into the world's richest nation group. So there are certain benefits also, but balance is needed to be created. So guys, this is all. Now we'll move to next. Now, friends, this editorial talks about the standoff that is going on between India and China. Now, we have seen that India and China shares a very long boundary, and in any year, on an average, 400 skirmishes or confrontations are seen. But this year, the things are a little bit different, because the scale of a confrontation is something different. Now, guys, there could be the certain reasons as why China is following such a kind of strategies, and what should be the India's response. Now, first of all, the reason number one why China is doing it is that China wants to divert the attention of the world countries from the origin of pandemic, and therefore it is going into these kind of confrontations. Then the second reason is that last year India unveiled the new map of Jammu and Kashmir after the reorganization of 2019, and there specifically Aksai Chin was shown as the part of India, and this particular thing has intimidated China, because Aksai Chin is actually under the control of China. Moreover, the bigger picture which unfolds here is that Aksai Chin as well as POK both are very much important, because they are part of the China Pakistan economic corridor, which in turn is the part of the pet project that is Belt and Road Initiative. Now, when the Indian government is reaffirming the sovereignty over both POK as well as Aksai Chin, then China can't afford to lose these regions, otherwise, the master plan of China will get foiled. So now, China is sending the signals and is intimidating India. Then, thirdly, traditionally, China has followed the slogan of a peaceful rise, but now the China has abandoned that policy, and therefore it is giving the violent messages to both New Delhi as well as to the USA. Because according to China, Delhi is not following the dictats of China and is not following in line. So it is just a reminder as how far China can go if Delhi will not follow. Moreover, this particular thing will send the signals to the neighborhood countries also that now China has changed. Moreover, guys, by following this thing, certain gains could be there onto the immediate basis. First of all, China can send the message to the USA as well as India that though on one hand it is dealing with the virus, on other hand it is dealing with the Hong Kong, and on to the third front it will deal with the LSE, so China can hold the pressure and you dare not tease the China. However, if we track the issue, China was not always like into this strategy. This thing has changed since 2017 at Doklam, and probably that was the time when China abandoned the philosophy of peaceful rise, and now they are going for the aggressive progress. Now, friends, a question comes that does exactly China wants to go into the war? Then the answer for that particular thing is no, because India is also a nuclear power, and there China will not be going with the war. But exactly China wants the standoff because into these kind of situation, the militarily strong nation will always take the advantage. So by these piecemeal fights, China is seeking certain short-term short gains in this regard. Now, friends, India has two options now. Number one is to accept that whatever has happened into the LAC, they are ready and will give up the land. But this thing will never be accepted by India. Or second is that India can assert that the status quo should be restored back and certain force can be made. But the question is that how the force is given on to the China. In that particular line, we should not forget number one, that we have $100 billion trade with the China, and on this particular line we can bend the China to heed to the Indian demands. Though trade suspension is not the way, but favorable gains can be achieved. Secondly, it is a fact that China is not strong onto the marine front where India has a considerable dominance. So India should tactically use its marine forces in order to reprimand the China. And then third, onto the India China border, there are various spots where China is weak and India has upper hand. For example, Doklam, because the terrain there favors India. So in these kind of fronts also, China could have been given a warning. So, friends, in all these particular ways and keeping all the background into mind, the government should make a coordinated response. So, friends, this was all. Now we'll go to next. Now, guys, this particular article talks as how the parliamentary proceedings can be made possible into the aftermath of present crisis. Now, world over, all the countries are facing this problem, and it is not unique to India. And in different ways, world countries are responding as how parliamentary proceedings can be made possible. In this regard, we can see examples of certain countries. For example, Canada has opted for the video conferencing of parliamentary proceedings. Then, the France, Italy, and Argentina, they are exploring the ways of holding the meeting via observing the social distancing norms. And the Britain has adopted the hybrid model where they will be using the video conferencing as well as the physical meeting with the social distancing. But India is lost in this particular regard, and no serious attempts by India are being seen onto this particular matter. Now, guys, the meeting of parliament is very much crucial because parliament holds a very important place. First of all, it is a house which keeps the executive accountable and keeps them tight on their knees by asking the questions. And as parliament has not met in last 2 months, such scrutiny is not being conducted, and if it will not meet soon, then there will be problem in this particular regard. Secondly, parliament is a house which passes the important legislations and therefore has an important role. Guys, right now government is ruling by the way of disaster management act, but this particular act was never meant to deal with the pandemics, but we can't do anything because there is no other law. So therefore meeting of parliament is again necessary so that a proper law can be passed. Then, guys, thirdly, there is one more issue, that there are certain impending crises which are happening into the country. For example, economic crisis, humanitarian crisis, treatment of the people, and all these things need a deliberation of a wider body as how the actions should be taken. So the meeting is again very much crucial. Now, friends, let's have a look as what the constitution says on parliamentary meetings. So, guys, in this particular regard, president is alone empowered to summon the parliament. And then further, the rules of the parliament provides that the secretary general will send the summon letters to all the MPs and will tell them the date and the time when they should meet. However, no provision is there that they cannot meet outside the parliament or through any other mechanisms. However, in this particular regard, permission from the speaker is to be taken, and after that, in other way also, the meetings can held. Now, guys, in this particular regard, the virtual meetings could be held, and there will be no problem of confidentiality because anyhow the meetings of parliament are open to the public. So therefore there is no problem into this particular regard. However, there are certain parliamentary proceedings or the meetings of the parliamentary standing committee which are needed to be done in confidentiality. So therefore that particular thing, the secure lines can be procured, and as various multinational corporations government are holding the virtual meets, India can also procure such kind of hardware as well as software. And finally, with respect to connectivity, all the district offices as well as even the panchayat offices are connected with the fiber optic network. So those infrastructure can be well utilized. Now, guys, the problem is not about the hardware or software. Rather, the problem is about the will. We need to see that in what light the parliamentarians see themselves. Do they see themselves as the representatives of people and the upholder of democracy, or just as the elitist officers? So the will is very much necessary. See, into the recent times, so many orders have been passed. According to certain estimates, more than 5,000 notifications by both the center as well as the state governments. So it needs to be scrutinized that how many of them were into the mandated law or not. Therefore, friends, the meeting of parliament is very much crucial for upholding the democratic order. So, guys, this was all about this. Now we'll move to next. Now, guys, this particular editorial talks the reasons as why there is a time to change the power policies with respect to the farm sectors. Right now, guys, the power to the farmers is either given free or it is given at a very subsidized rate. Now, though the agriculture is a state subject and electricity also is a state subject, the ultimate decision is taken by the state government. So, policies in different states are different. Now, the government of India had said that you need to discontinue this particular policy, and in that particular place you need to bring the system of direct benefit transfer. Now I will explain what will happen. Now, just suppose in some particular state, the general rate of electricity is 10 rupees per unit, but farmers are being given at 2 rupees per unit, and in meanwhile, 8 rupees is a subsidy which is being given by the state government. Now, we want that you charge from him also 10 rupees, and this 8 rupees don't give as upfront discount, rather transfer this 8 rupees into his bank account via the direct benefit transfer. Now a question comes that what purpose does it solve? Now, friends, into the village area, not everybody is doing the farming. Some people have also established their industries. Some are the general consumers. Now, in this particular scenario, everybody is getting the subsidized electricity at 2 rupees, which was not intended. However, guys, this particular thing is very politically complicated because farmers are a big vote bank, and in this particular thing, there will be a lot of politics that will go around this thing. So, therefore, many state governments will also be apprehensive in this particular regard. Now, guys, there are various reasons as why free power for the agriculture sector should be discontinued. Number one is the ecological losses. Right now, guys, as electricity is free, then the water is also excessively drawn from the groundwater because you don't need to pay for the electricity. And the two resources, that is electricity as well as water, are getting wasted. And even the judicious farmers also tend to go into these things because no price is directly being paid. Now, guys, if we talk about the data, then India is the largest user of groundwater. Nearly 250 billion cubic meters of water is used, which is combined as what is being used by the China as well as USA. So, into the long term, India's agriculture will not be able to sustain if this thing is followed. Then after that particular thing, it is being said that there is so much of water stress in even into the river deltas that we need to right now start conserving the water, and that thing will only happen when the incentives to draw water into the form of electricity will go away. Now, guys, apart from all this thing, there are certain people who propose the idea of a free power because they say that certain farmers are small and marginal and they don't have any facility of the irrigation. So they are bound to depend on drawing the water from the ground. Now, for those kind of farmers, for some time, the free electricity model could be given, but that thing also needed to be regulated, and into the long term, their dependence onto the groundwater also needed to be removed. However, whatever may be the case, right now the time is ripe that we should go forward with this particular kind of reform on urgent basis. So guys, this was all about this particular thing, and now we'll move to next. Now, guys, here's a news where the Buddhist paintings have been defaced into the Gilgit Baltistan region. Now, the Gilgit Baltistan is under the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and here these paintings were part of the Tibet Ladakh school of Buddhism. Now, guys, according to the UNESCO, these paintings contained a Buddha figure and the references of the three Buddhist councils. And friends, these references were the last surviving references of the three Buddhist councils together. Moreover, guys, if we talk about the exact location, then into the Gilgit Baltistan, there was the Chillas region where the paintings are situated. And into the nearby, there is also the Hunza site, which is also very much important part of the Buddhist circle. Moreover, friends, the two sites, that is Gilgit Baltistan as well as Hunza, are repeatedly into the news because of the Daimar Basha hydropower project, which is being built between the China and the Pakistan into the nearby regions. And often the project has been slammed by the locals as it might destroy the paintings and heritage. Now, friends, in order to revive the economy, certain decisions has been taken by the cabinet. Now, we have the dream of becoming 5 trillion economy by 2024 and 25. And for that particular thing, we need the massive investments. And guys, in the coming of investment, there is a major hurdle, that is attaining the clearances from the different departments. Now, in order to resolve that particular issue, government has decided to establish two things. First is empowered group of secretaries, and then the project development cell. So both of them will be there under all the ministries, and they will facilitate that the investors get the much needed clearances in very less of time. Further, guys, it will be a very high powered body, and it would be chaired by the cabinet secretary, and the secretary of DPIIT will be the convener. Then there will also be the CEO of Niti Aayog, and likewise. Guys, we don't need to remember the entire composition because it is neither a constitutional nor a statutory body. But just for a reference purpose, we can quote it. So, guys, this was all. Now we'll go to next. Now, friends, here's a little news item that a memorandum of understanding has been signed between the India and Bhutan, and it particularly concerns the environmental cooperation. Now, friends, environmental conservation has always been a very special area for the Bhutan, and Bhutan gives due importance to that particular thing. Now, friends, earlier in 2013 also, the Central Pollution Control Board and Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change from Indian side also signed the agreement with the National Environment Commission of the Bhutan. But this particular project was expired in 2016, but nothing again came out of this particular aspect. So, therefore, now a long term strategy for 10 years is being signed. Now, guys, this particular MOU will cover air, waste, chemical management, climate change, and all the areas which are associated with the environment. So, guys, just as a reference, we can see this. Now, friends, certain agricultural marketing reforms have been approved by the cabinet. In this particular regard, the most important reform that has been taken is the amendment into the Essential Commodities Act. Now, guys, if I give you certain background, then this particular act provides that certain essential commodities cannot be stored. Why? Because these are very much crucial for the survival of the masses. So people were not allowed to store these things, otherwise, they could be charged. But it was working counterproductive. Why? Because there are various industries which use these things as a raw material, and they also can't store this thing, otherwise they could be charged for the breach. And for last 10 years there was a demand that government should amend the Essential Commodities Act, and now finally government has amended this thing, and all these items such as cereals, pulses, oil seeds, edible oil, onion and potato will not be regulated under the Essential Commodities Act. However, here government has provided that during certain extraordinary conditions such as war, famine, or extraordinary price rise or natural calamity, government can still restrict the price of these particular commodities. However, during the normal times there will be no restriction. Now, guys, after the Essential Commodities Act, two more ordinances have been approved. The first is the Farming Produce Trade and Commerce Ordinance 2020. Now, as per this ordinance, there will be barrier free interstate as well as intrastate trade of agricultural commodities. Even outside the agricultural mandi, the goods could be sold by the farmers. So, here the farmer will get the better price discovery. And the second ordinance is the Farmers Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Ordinance. Now, this particular thing allows for the contract farming. It means that now farmers can make the agreements even before sowing their crops, and whenever the crops will be harvested, the crops would be sold to one big buyer. So it will also give the better price discovery to the farmer. So guys, these are very good initiatives which has taken into this particular regard. And now we'll move to the next. Now friends, here are the two news items, one from the British Prime Minister and now, friends, here there are two opposite statements by the Britain as well as Nepal. Britain says that if the China will go forward with the Hong Kong national security law, then the Britain will be giving the visas as well as citizenship to the people living into the Hong Kong. Whereas Nepal says that the Hong Kong belongs to the China, and Nepal says that they believe into the one China policy. So it shows that the world is divided onto the matter of Hong Kong, and different statements are being given. Now guys, Britain has a special interest into the Hong Kong because Hong Kong earlier was the territory of the Britain, and into that particular direction Britain will be coming for the rescue of the Hong Kong if anything bad happens in the territory by the China. Now the Nepal has a peculiar interest in China, and as you can see that the Kala Pani issue is going on with India, the Nepal urgently needs the support of China. Therefore, such kind of things could be seen by the Nepal side. Now, guys, the national security law, which the China had said that they will finally be passing, curtails the autonomy of Hong Kong. And some people believe that it is right by the China. Some people believe that it is wrong. And therefore, around the world, the opinions are divided. However, we don't need to see that which country supports or which country is against. Moreover, guys, into a separate attachment, Nepal had also opened their boundaries with India and are calling back the citizens who are into the distress. And in this such direction, 20 border checkpoints have been opened by the Nepal. Just a small attachment. So, friends, that's all. Now we'll go to the next. Now, guys, here a specific bird species has been mentioned, and many a times in ecology, the questions on the birds and animals have been asked. Now, the species mentioned here is brown rock chat, which is very commonly used to be found towards the North India. Now, guys, this particular bird is endemic throughout entire India, but is nearly absent into the south and is only found into the North India. Now, guys, it inhabits the ruins, abandoned buildings, and all these kind of things. But now, due to the increasing urbanization, concretization, the birds are not able to maintain their habitats, and they have now their population has been reduced drastically. Moreover, guys, the IUCN has given the status of least concerned to this bird onto the red list, but still their population has seen the considerable decline. So, friends, please remember the bird and its IUCN status. So guys, that's all about this, and now we'll go to the question section. Guys, pause the video and try to answer the question. First, which report is not released by the World Bank? Try to use the elimination method, one report we discussed yesterday. Now the question number 2 is with respect to the pointing around the LAC. Now all these locations have been discussed. Try to think on the right answer. Now here you need to tell the correct statements with respect to the cyclones. And the fourth question is from Science and Tech. You need to tell the characteristics of the supernova. Now guys, the main question for today. Parliament is not only a legislative body but a deliberative body too. You need to comment on this particular statement and also need to provide the reforms that are required. Guys, attempt it. This question is for 15 marks and I will be giving you the framework in tomorrow's video. So friends, that's all for today's newspaper analysis. I hope you are liking the effort. Thank you so much.